Everyone, Mr. Silva here, and this is the first in a series of PowerPoints for the Computer Applications in Business 2 business unit. And in this lesson, we're going to start talking about resumes. So what is a resume? It's a French word. It's spelled like that, or we can add the accents in. A resume is a professional document that highlights one's skills and some things that it could potentially show. Most importantly, your information. So your name, your address, your email, and your phone number. The ways and methods of contacting you in case they're interested in interviewing you or hiring you down the road. Your experience is included here, such as your jobs, your volunteer experience, your leadership experience, any activities where you've been in charge, anything of that nature. Your education, where you went to school, and any degrees that you have earned, any achievements, these are optional, and any interest or special skills that you have, these are also optional as well. This is generally one of your first impressions. Your first impression is you yourself, but your resume kind of supports that. So you want to make sure that you have a good resume. A good resume can land you a job because of the skills and the time that you put into it to make it so that it is perfect. You'll need to have your resume updated constantly. You never know when that job that you want may come up. So for writing the resume, you don't have to have a complicated format. Everything is basically the same no matter what you do. You also don't have a lot of experience right now because you're all middle school students, but that's okay. You'll fill in the sections as best as you can. You'll create a sample resume in Edmodo, and I'll create a blank template that you can fill in if you don't have Office. If you do have Office on your computer, you can use any of the resume templates. Just be careful because you want to make sure that the one that you pick is not overly distracting and over the top. If you have any questions about what you can include and not include, please let me know. I get this a lot. Can I include like doing this activity, or I did this, I babysat? Yes. Email me, ask me those questions during office hours if you are confused about what you can potentially include in your resume. So in the reading this week, it went over the basic format of what we're looking for. So in general, at the top, and it's usually centered, although depending on the format and template that you may use, it may not be, your name's at the top, and it's usually bigger than the rest of the page. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that, especially because you want you yourself to stand out. So your name, and then below that will be your address, and then a phone number, and then your email. Your address and phone number for this assignment and only this assignment, they are optional. If you don't feel comfortable including those, just use the schools this is just for practice. Because we want to make sure that you are not giving that information necessarily out. But when you do apply for an actual job, yes, you do need to put your actual address and your actual phone number because they want to make sure that they're able to get in contact with you. Next, in the middle, these are all in sections. I didn't make it necessarily clear here, but when you look at the reading for this week, they are in sections depending on what you and how you organize them. So at the top would be your work experience and your volunteer experience that could be included there. If you don't have any, that's okay. This could be something as simple as babysitting if you've done that, and you could list that as well. This would be any positions that you've held. If you do not have any work experience or volunteer experience, and there's a lot we can work with here. If you do not have any of that, you need to skip this section completely. If there's a section that does not apply to you, that you do not currently have, you need to skip it. Don't just put work experience and then none. That looks bad. So you want to make sure that if you don't have anything, but you really, really need to dig and really, really look before you just eliminate the entire section, okay? Next, you would put your education. This would be all of your entries. You don't have to include elementary so much, not really looking for that. If you've gone to the same school the entire time, great. You can just put that one school. If you've changed schools a few times, it's okay. I recommend usually that if you have gone to a lot of different schools that you only put like the past 2 or 3. You don't want to put too many. And then next would be activities. What are you involved in? Anything that you'd like to do. You can also include your hobbies and things of that nature there. And then special skills. Um, so I make the comment here, you're all in my computer class and we've all done Word and Excel this semester. So you can include that you've done that and you've had experience with that. Computer skills are very important these days. So make sure you market that and have that noted on your resume if you choose to do that. Those are optional, the activities and special skills, especially as you get older. You don't necessarily put those on anymore unless they are extremely relevant to your job that you're applying for. All right, these are some of the writing guidelines. This was also provided in the reading this week. If you have no jobs, you're going to start with your education first. And again, if you don't have any jobs, you eliminate that section to begin with. You start with the present and what job you currently have, and then you work your way to the past. So if you've worked multiple jobs, you would start with the most recent and work your way back. Same with education here. You can list your duties and responsibilities, like you can list your job and then what you did during that job. And you can use the word I, but you don't want to overdo using I. So be careful of that and keep that in mind. Usually you just want to put what you did. Make sure you list your dates. So in general, you would put the month and then the year. So like January 2020, that's perfect. You would put for your job and for your education the day you started until the day that you ended. So if you started working in a job in May of 2019, you would put May 2019 to the present. If you left that job, say at the end of the summer, you would put May 2019 to August 2019, whatever you would need to put. Same thing with your education, you do put the dates there as well. You want to limit the amount of personal data you give out, and you also do not want to include your age. They don't need to know how old you are. And you don't want to put any personal information that you would not want. This is just to show what you have done. Any personal information goes in the application that you are filling out to apply for the job. You should only use activities and hobbies if they're related to the job you're applying for. For our case, I would like you to include your activities and hobbies because that gives your interviewer something to talk about. You don't discuss your salary. That comes after you've gotten the job offer because if you're asking for a very high salary, they may look you over because your demands are a little bit too much. So salary comes after you've gotten the job. You don't list your references on the resume. This is just to highlight your skills and what you've done. Your references are for your application. Be brief. You want to try and limit it to 1 page. Most of the time when employers are looking over your resume, they don't have a whole lot of time, especially if it's a very popular job and they've gotten a lot of resumes. So they're going to look at it very briefly, and if it's not perfect, not looking good, just you clearly didn't take your time on it, they will pass you over. So please make sure you make it a page or less. Next is to proofread, 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 proofread. When you write a resume, your resume is essentially a picture of you without having met you yet. So you want to make sure that you proofread it because if you make a spelling mistake, that could easily get you passed over. So make sure you proofread it or have someone else proofread it for you. Next, you want to make sure you don't use any distracting fonts or layouts. This is very important because of the fact that if it's too distracting, your person who's looking at your resume is just going to say nope and move on. So please make sure simple is better here. So keep that in mind. But most importantly, you must be honest in your resume. And it's extremely important that when you write your resume, you are honest. Everything can be traced back and verified. All it takes is a simple call to the person that you have, the company or person that you've put in your resume. All it does is a simple call to them to say, hey, did this so and so work for you? And if you're not honest, you may not get an interview. They may pass you by after doing some research. And lying on an application, and we'll talk more about that in another lesson, lying on an application could get you fired. So, same thing with your resume. If you're not honest and they find out later, you could lose your job. So keep that in mind. Honesty is most important here. So in this unit, we're going to go through the steps of applying for a job. Start with resumes today. Next, we're going to talk about finding a job that suits you and finding a job that's the best fit for you. So we'll have a little bit of fun there. Then after that, we'll talk about job applications, the cover letter, dressing for success when you're doing an interview, and then we'll go through the interview process. At the end of this unit, you will go through an actual interview, either with members of our community or with me. So I will guide you step by step through that process, and we'll get you through it. If you have questions, please let me know, and thank you for watching.